President Trump is back at his Bedminster, New Jersey club after visiting a petrochemical facility near Pittsburgh. The factory, owned by the Shell Oil Company, will produce more than 1 million tiny plastic pellets each year. Before his visit, the president addressed concerns over the factory's potential harm to the environment.
Now, plastics are fine. You have to know what to do with them. But other countries are not taking care of their plastic use. They haven't for a long time. And the plastic that we're getting is floating across the ocean from other places, including China.
According to the New York Times, more than a dozen of these types of plastic plants are being built or proposed around the world. Falling natural gas prices and plastic's versatility are fueling the growth. But what are the long-term costs? New York Times reporter Michael Corkery joins me now. Michael, thank you so much for joining us. It really is sort of sobering to think about the scale of what we're talking about here and our use and our dependence essentially on plastics. But before we get to that, what use are these plastic pellets being made for? What are the various uses?
So it's a pretty wide range of uses. I mean, it's everything from car parts to cell phone cases, but it's also being used for water bottles, grocery bags, food packaging. I mean, the stuff that's ending up in the oceans because our waste management systems just can't deal with all the waste. So that's the real concern. This plant's going to make 1 million tons of plastic pellets, and it's going to add a lot of plastic overall to the earth.
And of course, people in Pittsburgh are seeing this plant as an economic engine. Can you elaborate a little bit more about that aspect? Because there will be jobs here at this plant.
Yeah, there already are jobs. It's a huge construction site. It's probably one of the biggest, if not the biggest, in the U.S. right now. It's a lot of union jobs, pipe fitters, electricians. There's 6,000 people that are going to work on this site at its peak. Building it. Right now there's about 5,000. So it's boom town in that part of Pennsylvania, about 30 miles northwest of Pittsburgh. It's an area that was hurt when the steel industry collapsed in the 1980s. They used to have an unemployment there of 28% at its peak. So this is really good news to the small businesses, to the workers there. When it's built, it's going to have far less people working there, about 600 permanent jobs. So a lot of that activity is likely to slow down. But for now, it's very welcome there by a lot of people.
You know, it's interesting when you hear some talk about plastics, it is often sort of described as the difficulty is that it's not being disposed of properly or recycled properly, that in fact it is a problem that can be addressed if only these steps are taken. What have you found in your reporting?
Well, that is true. I mean, the problem is in the disposal. I mean, there's plenty of efforts to try to recycle plastic. I mean, many of us all do it at home. We do it in our businesses and our schools and the recycling bins, and we dutifully wash out our yogurt containers and separate them. But the fact is that only 9% of the plastic that we consume is being recycled. A lot of that's ending up in landfills as waste. A lot of it some of it's being burned in incinerators, but a great amount of it is also ending up in the environment as litter. And I think the concern is that as we add more and more plastic for good uses, I mean, it's, these are things, Shell itself makes the point that, look, if our cars weren't made of plastic, they would use more gasoline because they would be less efficient. So that would add more carbon to the environment. So there are trade-offs. But, a lot of the growth in plastics is in the single use. It's the stuff that we as consumers, consume quickly on the go, the food, the packaging, our Amazon packages that we get, the envelopes. Right. It's in everyday environment, and that's the stuff that the waste management of industry can't always keep up with, and it's ending up in places that we don't want it to end up in, and that's what people are worried about.
Let's zero in back to Pennsylvania, and I want to ask you about natural gas in Pennsylvania. It has been about 15 years since hydraulic fracturing, commonly known as fracking, took hold in the state. Profits from natural gas, though, have fallen, and how has that impacted plastic production?
Yeah, I mean, that's, again, like you said, it's been a little over a decade since, this huge deposit of natural gas underneath Western PA and a lot of Pennsylvania, but in particular that part of Western Pennsylvania around Pittsburgh into Ohio, into West Virginia, they've always known it was there, but they found through fracking a way to get it out so efficiently that there became an oversupply of that gas, and that caused prices to fall. So selling a byproduct of that natural gas, ethane, that comes out at the same time as you frack the natural gas, the ethane comes out also, and for that to come out, it's a byproduct that can be used for plastic. And for the fracking industry, that's welcome news. That's a big, good development for them, because it changes the whole economics of this industry that's been under a lot of pressure. I mean, there's a lot of fracking companies that have gone out of business, that have had to consolidate. It's been a tough few years for the fracking industry, and plastics and petrochemical development is a really promising development for them, and I think they really welcome a plant certainly as big on the same scale as Shell's. But there's a lot of other things planned in West Virginia, in Ohio. I mean, President Trump himself said today, we want to have more of these, and I'm going to help you get them permitted. There's a lot going on in the Gulf Coast, down in Louisiana, in Texas. So this is a big thing for the energy industry.
Yeah, I mean, so many forces at play, but as you point out in the piece, so many questions about long-term effects and what could happen. All right, Michael Corkery, thank you very much for your time, Michael. Appreciate it.
Thank you.